Human cloning. The technology for this is called somatic cell nuclear transferring. This same technology was used for Dolly the sheep. First, the doctor takes an egg from the female, removes the egg's nucleus, which makes it an enucleated egg. The person being cloned has a cell which has DNA that is taken from him or her. The enucleated egg is fused with the person's cell using electricity. This makes an embryo. The embryo is then implanted into a surrogate mother using in vitro fertilization. If successful, the mother would give birth to the clone. Human cloning, in terms of positives for society, could be used in the future to reverse the aging process. Could also be used to reverse heart attacks. Infertile couples could have children with clones. Cloning would also provide for doctors to be able to create organs and bones specifically to the patient's needs. Human cloning could also allow us to no longer have to deal with defective genes, which is the reason that we get sick. Disorders such as Down syndrome could also be avoided using cloning. Cloning livers, kidneys, and bone marrow for cancer patients. Learning how to turn off and on cells could also cure cancer using human cloning. Human cloning is controversial because science will always advance. It's just a question of how far do we let science go. This brings up questions about whether or not the clone would be truly human or just a bunch of cells that looks like a human that science was able to put life into. If science was able to create the clone, would the clone be property or a free person? Does the clone have dignity? This also brings into account the fact that cloning would effectively take away the uniqueness that makes us human. If we program a clone to have the physical features we desire it to have, it has lost its diversity and effectively its human nature. Human cloning has positives and negatives. People who would benefit from human cloning would be cancer patients, people who need organ transfers, people who want cosmetic surgeries, and of course, scientists. People who would suffer would be the clone itself because people may regard it as property, the dignity of our human nature, and the original man who was cloned if the clone was superior.
The principles that we thought fit this best were human nature, human person, value, dignity, and equality among others. All of these principles have the same common goal, in terms that the clone does not have the same DNA and personality as the naturally conceived individual. This is where we reach a problem. Is this clone a human being if it was not conceived the quote-unquote natural way? In terms of the technology previously mentioned, these principles are against many of the procedures when it comes to creating a clone in a mother. This brings up questions about the individuality and uniqueness of that clone. Is that clone human? However, in terms of organ transplants and other medical procedures, these principles do not directly support or deny the idea of aiding individuals who are already living. I guess we'll just have to see how far science is going to go to determine if it is morally ethical.
If human cloning were to be real, an oversight committee would need to be implemented in order to control it. On this committee would sit a stem cell researcher to provide insight into the process, a Catholic priest to reflect on the moral implications, a government representative from the Department of Health and Human Services to weigh in on the legality, a publicly elected official to represent the wishes of the people, and finally, a representative from the World Health Organization to talk about the health risks associated with human cloning.
Catholics believe that cloning represents a violation of two fundamental principles on which all human rights are based. First is the principle of equality among human beings, because cloning opens up opportunity for man's domination over man. Second is the principle of non-discrimination, because in cloning, certain traits are chosen and make the individual superior to other individuals depending on the traits. This is known as selective eugenics and can often lead to various ethical issues. The Church also opposes cloning because it denies the dignity of the person subjected to cloning, and it is as if scientists take on the role of God in a way by selecting certain genes for the clones. The Church also claims that in the cloning process, the basic relationships of the human person are violated. Through in vitro fertilization, there have already been various problems due to confusions of parentage. In conclusion, at first as a group, we were all for the idea of cloning, but after the project, we oppose cloning because it is not okay for scientists to take the role of God in such a way by choosing certain traits and making the decision of creating other human beings without the natural process.